Hello my dear students, we are on part 2 of the chapter Joint Stock Company for ICSE Class 9 Commercial Studies students. In our last part, we studied why Joint Stock Company is meaning, its different definitions, its features. So we studied all the features in detail. Okay, and in today's video, so these were all the features that we did in our last video, and today we'll be doing distinction between many things, very important from examination point of view, and we'll study about OPC. So let's begin today's class. So first is distinction between company and partnership. Okay, so whenever now company comes, it means joint stock company. Okay students, now so example of partnership is a chai stall like this, but example of a joint stock company is Tata Tea Company, something like this. So it gives you a fair idea if you know the examples. Okay, so let's talk about first distinction, mode of creation. How is a joint stock company formed? What is the mode of creation? By incorporation under the Companies Act. In yesterday's class I explained you Companies Act is very important. So by incorporation under the Companies Act among partners. So partners incorporated under the Companies Act. And in the partnership, it is only by a written or oral agreement. Okay, in such a case they must have orally agreed or written. But in this case, you have to incorporate the company under the Companies Act. Next point of distinction is legal status. So company is a distinct legal entity. I gave you the example of the robot and we did that he is a different legal entity, different from the members. Whereas in partnership there is no separate legal entity different from partners. In company, if you talk about the number of members, so if it is a public company, then minimum 7 and maximum there is no limit. But if it is a private company, then minimum is 2 and maximum is 200. Okay, so this is very important. Please learn it by heart. In partnership, minimum 2 has to be there and maximum 50. I have explained this in detail in the chapter partnership. Okay, if you haven't watched that, please watch. There are 2 parts of the chapter partnership, very important chapter as well. Now, the third point of distinction is liability. Okay, so in case of a joint stock company, generally the liability is limited up to the face value of shares held or amount of guarantee given. I had given you the example yesterday, 50 into 100, right? Or 50 into 10, a 10 rupee share. So it was 500 rupees. So this is liability is just limited to the face value of shares held. Okay. Whereas in partnership there is unlimited joint or several liabilities. In case of company, if we talk about transferability of interest, okay, then it is transferable to other members. In partnership, not transferable without the mutual consent of all the partners. Okay, so it is transferability of interest in the form of shares. Okay, transferability of interest in the form of shares. Okay, let's go to the next part. Now, management. We know that in a company, members elect directors. We did this yesterday. Directors will manage the company. Whereas in partnership, generally every partner has the right to take part in the management of the firm. In case of company, if we talk about implied agency, a member is not an agent of the company or of other members. Okay. Whereas in partnership, every partner is an agent of the firm and of other partners as well. So in implied, this member is not an agent. Here every partner is an agent. Now, registration. We know that registration under the Companies Act is compulsory in case of company, whereas in partnership it is not compulsory. Point of distinction, ninth point is legal formalities and statutory control. So filling of the audited accounts is compulsory, and this cannot change its object without legal procedure. So there has to be legal formalities and there is a statutory control by government. Whereas in partnership, accounts and audit not compulsory. They are not compulsory, can change objects freely. You can change the objects under the list freely. Now, dissolution. When is company dissolved? It does not dissolve by death, insolvency, lunacy, etc. of the members. So, if the member die, okay, if the member goes lunatic, goes mad, okay, then also the company doesn't dissolve. We have done this yesterday, right? Whereas in partnership, it is dissolved by death, insolvency and lunacy of a partner. If a partner dies, if he becomes insolvent or he becomes mad, lunatic, then the partnership is dissolved. Now, governing law in India. So, which is the governing law in India for joint stock companies? The Companies Act 2013. Whereas for partnership, it is the Partnership Act 1932. This is very, very important for your board, for your exams, okay, for your school exams. Now comes the next distinction. So these were 11 points. Please remember, these were 11 points of distinction between a company and a partnership. Now we will talk about public and private companies. Okay, so remember these joint stock companies. Okay, joint stock companies can be public as well as private. Okay, in the distinguish between also we have read. See, I'll show you. See this point. Okay, so company can be a public company as well as private company. Okay. So now we are distinguishing between public and private companies. So if we take an example of public, it is Reliance or TCS. Okay, whereas private is a private family business. Okay, it can be any grocery shop or tailor shop or anything. It can be a private family business. So let's start the distinction. Now, for a public company, the minimum number of members is 7, whereas for private company, it is 2. Okay, 2 and 7, remember. Now, maximum number, there is no limit for a public company, and private, there is 200. Now, minimum number of directors. Now, we studied about members, right? Now, directors. For a public company, there has to be 3 directors. Whereas for private company, only 2 can do. Okay, minimum is 2. Now, public invitation for capital. We know that for a big company, you need people to buy shares. Okay, so we invite public for collecting the capital. So in case of a public company, it is free to invite the public to buy its shares and debentures. Whereas in a private company, it cannot invite the public to buy its shares and debentures. Now, public company. When we talk about commencement of business, it cannot commence business after incorporation unless the certificate of commencement of business is obtained from the company, from the registrar's office. Okay. Whereas in private company, it can commence business immediately after incorporation. जैसे ही कंपनी फॉर्म हुई, डायरेक्ट फटाफट आप बिजनेस शुरू कर सकते हो, बिजनेस ऑपरेशन शुरू कर सकते हो. Now, prospectus. For a public company, it must issue and file a prospectus of statement in lieu of prospectus. Okay, since there are common people who are buying the shares, so the public company must issue and file a prospectus, whereas private company need not issue and file a prospectus. Now, allotment of shares. Public company cannot allot shares without receiving the minimum subscription. So there has to be a minimum subscription. After that, it can allot shares. And private company, it can allot shares without raising the minimum subscription. So it is very important. Minimum subscription has to reach, okay, in case of public company, and here it can allot shares without raising the minimum subscription. Now statutory meeting, okay, it must hold a statutory meeting, whereas in private it need not hold a statutory meeting. Statutory report, it must file a statutory report to the registrar's office. It need not file a statutory report. Now transfer of shares, its shares are freely transferable. For a public company, shares are freely transferable. Sorry, where did it go? Just a second, kids. Whereas in private companies, its shares are not freely transferable. So freely transferable, not freely transferable. Now share warrants. Public company cannot issue the share warrants, whereas private company can issue share warrants. Now when we talk about directors, the rules regarding the directors. So in a public company, appointment, reappointment, etc. of the directors is subjected to government approval. So when we want to appoint, reappoint, okay, directors, since it is a public company, so it has to be government approved. Now private company, no government approval required for appointment or reappointment, etc. of directors. Next, managerial remuneration means how much money or how much salary or how much compensation would be given, okay, to the managers. So in public there is a legal restrictions, in private company there is no legal restrictions. Now minimum paid up capital for a public company, the minimum capital that should be there is 5 lakh. For private company it is 1 lakh. This is the minimum I am saying. Now comes the third table, that is private company and partnership. Okay. So if we take the example of a private company, if we take example Apollo Hospitals. Apollo Hospitals is a private company. And if we take an example of partnership, then clinic run by 2 or 3 doctors together. Okay, so this you can say is partnership example, and this is, you can say, private company. You can see the difference by the picture itself and imagine. So private and partnership. So if we talk about registration, obviously private company is a part of what? Joint stock company. So compulsory. Registration is compulsory. Whereas in partnership it is not compulsory. Now number of members, we have already done this so many times. Now you should remember this. Minimum is 2, maximum is 200. In partnership minimum is 2, maximum is 50. Okay. Legal status. Now private company is a separate legal entity, whereas partnership no separate legal entity. I hope you understand the meaning of legal entity. I had explained this in detail when I explained the first part. Liability of members. So private company, the liability is limited. How much is it? Please write in the comment box. How much is it? Liability of members? Just the face value of the shares. So we did the example yesterday of 500 rupees. Do you remember? And partnership is, liability is unlimited. Now implied agency, again private company, no member is an implied agent of the company, whereas in the partnership a partner is an implied agent of the firm. So students, always remember, whenever you are doing the difference between company and partnership, or if you are doing private company and partnership, many of the things remain same, right? Because private company is also a part of this. So keep these things in mind while you are writing the answers. Okay, let's go ahead. Sixth point is audit of accounts. Private company audit of account is compulsory, partnership not compulsory. Management again by board of directors in a private company. Just a second. So by board of directors, here by partners. Governing law again the Companies Act 2013 and here it is Partnership Act 1932. Now a very important topic, one person company. Many students get confused in this. What is a one person company or an OPC? Okay, students confuse it with what? With the entrepreneurship, with the sole proprietorship that we have done. We have done sole proprietor. Okay, so OPC is not exactly as sole proprietorship. Okay, even though the name suggests so. So listen carefully. The Companies Act 2013 allows the formation of one person company. As the name suggests, an OPC has only one member. The sole member must nominate someone to take charge in case of his death or disability. So he should nominate someone that if he dies or if he becomes disabled, then he will take charge. The nominee's written consent must be filed with the registrar of companies. So registrar of companies mein you should be giving the nominee's written consent. So let's talk more about one person company. It is always formed under Companies Act 2013. It has only one member, must nominate someone in case of death or disability. It is a separate legal entity. Liability is limited to the capital that is contributed and needs minimum one director. Okay, so even though the company is one person company, can that person, okay, that member is one, okay, but he will require the directors to run the company, right? So let's talk about main features of an OPC. This will clear all your confusions. So it is a form of a private company itself. Okay, OPC is one of the form of private company. It has a legal entity separate from its member. Okay, so it is, you can say it is a part of joint stock company. Under private, this falls, OPC falls. Okay. The liability of the member is limited to the amount of capital contributed by him. The liability becomes unlimited if the activities of OPC are carried out in a modified manner. Okay, if not in a proper manner. An OPC may be managed by the owner or his representative. Next is, an OPC will get its annual accounts audited and file a copy of the same with the registrar of companies. Okay, since it is a part of the private company, it has to, give audited accounts to the submit to the registrar of the companies. Now, minimum share capital may be prescribed for an OPC. So for an OPC, minimum share capital may be prescribed. Every OPC shall have at least one director. This is important point. One director is there. The one person shall have to indicate the name of the person who is in the event of the subscriber's death, disability, etc. becomes the member of the company. So basic points what you have to remember here is it is a form of a private company. Legal entity is, so it has a separate legal entity. Liability is limited. It becomes unlimited if it is carried out in a wrong manner, malified manner, in which cheating happens and all. Okay, so that time liability becomes unlimited. OPC may be managed by owner or the representative of that owner. Okay, annual accounts have to be audited and submitted in registrars of company. One shall have at least one director. Minimum share capital must be may be prescribed for an OPC, not compulsory. And one person will have to nominate someone. Okay, nomination has to be there. So now the distinction between proprietorship and OPC. Many students are confused here, so let me explain. proprietorship is like a shop, one shop. Okay, whereas OPC, if you see, is one person with company's benefit. Okay, I hope these two lines explained everything. So let's see the legal status of a proprietorship of a shop. If you remember, the firm and the owner are one. Okay, the firm and the owner both are one, so no need here. Whereas in an OPC it is a separate legal entity. I had explained you this in part 1 that an OPC is a part, see, OPC is a part of joint stock company, correct? It comes under that. So it is a separate legal entity different from its members. Whereas in the proprietorship, the firm and the owner both are one, so it cannot have a separate legal entity. Then registration, proprietorship, in proprietorship registration is not compulsory, whereas here it must be registered. Liability of the owner, the liability of the owner is unlimited because he is the proprietor, so all the liabilities fall on him. Whereas in OPC it is limited. Always remember rupees 500 example. Now setting up. In the proprietorship it is easy to set up and minimum paperwork is involved. Whereas in an OPC, since you have to register the company and everything, it is difficult to set up, involves more paperwork, it is a time consuming process, right? And the last part is formalities. In proprietorship, no legal formalities is involved. Okay. Whereas in an OPC, formalities concerning board meetings, audit, etc. make it very difficult to run. Okay. So that was the difference between proprietorship and OPC. I hope you have understood joint stock company in detail. Okay. If you have any doubts, okay, please go ahead and watch the first part, and I know that all your doubts will get cleared. And we will also be taking a lot of question answers, MCQs for this. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, do it right away. Share it with your friends so that you will get notified of the next chapters of commercial studies that I will be uploading. Thank you. We have also economics chapters uploaded, so go ahead and see them. Bye bye, my dear students.